Welcome to the Not For Profit Podcast. My name is Matt Williams. We're back again with Tim Oberg, Strategic Director, Asia Pacific Parkrun. And we're talking today about finances, how to manage finances, how to coordinate partnerships. And we welcome Tim back onto the show. Thanks for joining us on the Not For Profit Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Platinum Audits. All your auditing needs, just jump onto platinumaudits.com.au. Welcome back, Tim.
Great to be back. Thanks, Matt.
So we discussed last time on the previous podcast about things we growing, the NFPs, things like that, how we do things. I just want to delve a little bit more into this side of things and talk about the strategic alignment of partnerships. As I said in the previous podcast, I'm a park runner myself. I'm actually a run director. I volunteer on Saturday mornings once a month, help out, that sort of thing. I want to know from your perspective, how do you find those strategic alignments? Parkrun, let me get this, if I get this wrong, please shoot me. I should know it. We've got Better Being Private, we've got Athlete's Foot, and we have Blackmore's at the moment as our three current sponsors. Oh, I got them right. I just want to know, how do you go about finding those alliances, and how do you go about aligning them with the parkrun ethos? Let's start with the first one. How do you find them?
Okay, well, they come in a number of ways, to be honest. So, I mean, our first sponsor right back in 2011 was Adidas, and that came about because I was in South Africa getting married, and my wife's brother's best friend worked for Adidas in South Africa, and he introduced me to Adidas in Melbourne, in Australia, and I had a meeting before I even got off the plane. Meeting lined up before I even got off the plane. So essentially, one way is through your network. I think that's often the best way, because when you've got someone advocating for you on the inside of a business, that's so much stronger than sending a proposal to someone who doesn't know who you are or what you do. So advocacy and using your network is a really important one. Now, looking at it on a completely different way, is there are also agencies that will take your brand to potential sponsors. And like Blackmore's as an example, who our latest partner came through an agency. So there's lots of different ways. It is really hard. It's really challenging to get good partners. We get approached by lots of different brands that want to promote what they do to parkrun, and they're approaching us because they know we've got a large database. But in terms, I guess this is question two that you posed a minute ago, in terms of how do we actually, I guess, select the appropriate partners. And we really bring it all back to our mission and our values. And, the mission is healthier and happier planet. And so if the brand doesn't support that, then they're not right for us. So we'll get approached by sugary energy drinks or sugary breakfast cereals, or we've never been approached by alcohol, but there's an example of one that just wouldn't fit. So I'd say of all the inquiries that we receive, probably 90% don't fit with our mission and our ethos. They're just brands who want to get in front of our large audience. And that's when people sign up to Parkrun, they don't sign up to that. They don't sign up to be spammed to by brands that don't support our values. And so we're really, really conscious of that. So ultimately it comes back to the mission of healthier and happier planet.
Yeah. Does it also come back to money as well? How much? Because I know that, I've seen the parkrun growth in the last sort of 5 years since I've been involved, and it's from 5 years ago to now, it's probably 4 times what it was. Some of those people coming in that do fit the criteria, are they not big enough for Parkrun Australia, or too big? Can it be too big?
Yeah, look, I don't think we could have too big.
Okay.
But we definitely have we've had some really nice businesses that are sort of little, kitchen table businesses that are doing really good things. But, they just don't they're just not big enough to support us, and that can mean a number of things. Obviously, one of the one of the components of that is money. They don't have the budget to buy into what a sponsorship with Parkrun costs. But the other two is actually being able to service it as well. So, with 360 odd locations around the country, you want to be able to activate any relationship you have with us. And so you have to be a business of a reasonable size to be able to achieve that as well. And then even from a digital comms point of view as well, that, there's a level of, I guess, staffing that any business would require to be able to manage a partnership with us. So yeah, you can definitely have businesses that are about being healthier and happier, but they're not big enough to be able to partner with us. And yeah, certainly we haven't come across any that are too big yet.
No, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
For Parkrun Australia and for Parkrun Worldwide, are they run the same way? So, like, I know Parkrun's ethos is happy, healthier planet. That's been born from the very first Parkrun. Is it the same worldwide? Because I know that through my experience with Parkrun, I have my registered barcode, and I'm available. Can be used anywhere in the world. Is it same with sponsorship? So, are we looking for the same sponsorships, ethos wise, all around the world?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's although we're in 21 countries, we all work to the same mission statement, and none of us work in silos. So, with my role here being Asia Pacific, I mean, we directly oversee Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Japan. So any commercial relationship that might eventuate in any of those countries comes through me. But I don't have ultimate sign-off as well. Like, if it comes to me, I'll then be talking with our global team based in the UK as to whether they deem something to be appropriate or not. And sometimes there are grey areas in terms of what a brand means and stands for and what their mission is. So we have to look at that sometimes and go, oh, what do we think about this one? And sometimes, as I say, sometimes it does require a bit of discussion. So looking at Parkrun globally, we operate as a big team, and we're all working, singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak.
Excellent. For that Asia Pacific region for yourself, how do you manage that time-wise? Like, I know Australia's got 360, Singapore's got a few. I went to one there myself. Is it time-wise you have to base yourself in, like, you're based in Australia and you look at Asia Pacific, but you'll have to travel to Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, New Zealand regularly. How do you manage that time flow, and how do you manage that having people under you to manage that, or manage that yourself time-wise?
Look, with technology being what it is, I'm not having to be on the road anywhere near as much as, let's say, hypothetically, this role was 10 years ago and the technology wasn't as advanced as it was now. Then someone in my role would absolutely be on the road quite regularly. As it stands right now, like, I'll probably be in Japan three to four times next year, say. Malaysia and Singapore probably a couple of times, and maybe even in the same trip, because obviously being, all up in that region. So I'll probably go over to New Zealand, maybe once or twice next year. So I'm not regularly there. The key for us is that we've established a really strong volunteer network in those locations, and people who volunteer at their local event, if they want to, do a little bit more, then we have what we call an ambassador role. So you might be an event ambassador, which is somebody who mentors existing events and helps to bring on new ones, or you might be a photography ambassador, where we ask you to take really good photos and get them to us that we can use for promotional purposes. You might be a grant ambassador, as somebody who helps us write grants for government, because some people on a Saturday morning, it's actually challenging for them to get to Parkrun, but one way they can stay connected is by volunteering on other days during the week, around their jobs and their families and so on. So there's lots of ways people can do that, and I think that is the key in terms of how we can actually be in all these countries and be operating successfully, is through leveraging the passion and hard work of all these volunteers.
Yeah, awesome. You said you work globally as a team and stuff like that. Do you get something from global team that comes down through across the globe and through Australia? Do you get things that you have to do that you not necessarily wouldn't agree with, because it's a consensus, like you said, but sometimes there's things that people go, why are we going down that path? Why are they doing that? Is there sometimes things that happen that way? And if there is, how do you manage that? How do you get it to the masses, like the 360 odd events in Australia, without treading on too many toes, so to speak?
Yeah, look, I think it all comes down to perception, and there are times when we in Australia might perceive that a decision has been made by our colleagues in the UK, and we haven't been consulted or whatever might be the case. But that's our perception of what's happened. Not 99 times out of 100, when we then discuss it with our colleagues, we realise that we just haven't understood, or we're perceiving it incorrectly. So I think it's in terms of decisions like that, there's a bit of salesmanship that goes on with it. And so if something happens that potentially we might be confused about or don't agree with, then that's where we have a conversation with our colleagues in the UK. Likewise, when we're, I guess, passing things down the chain, so to speak, then it's about how we deliver that message. I'm really big on trying to deliver these things face to face. And when I say that, what I mean by that is we do a lot of video content where we'll do video messages to our volunteers, and so we have a weekly Wednesday video update that we put out to our ambassadors. And I think so putting a human face to something like that, putting a human face to a decision, I think goes a long way, rather than just putting something in a memo or a note or an email. So I think when you really show people that human side, and that it's trying to explain why a decision's been made, then that makes a really big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find that as well in our business, putting a face to it. And most people do like doing exactly like this face-to-face conversations. So it makes a big difference in the sense of every parkrun is different, but every parkrun is the same. How do we touched on a little bit on the previous episode, but how do you get that individualism with the same in the background? You said you talk about systems and keeping it simple and all that stuff, but how do you get that individualism? Because I know that as part of our parkrun, we have different things going on and stuff like that, and some parkruns you go to don't do it. Is there a do and don't list, so to speak? Can and can't. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything like that, but like
no.
I just from an NFP perspective here, that say this is what these guys do. It's a massive thing, 360 just in Australia. How do you keep them like the same but all different?
Yes, I mean there are certain things that are non-negotiable. So it's got to be Saturday. Each event has a start time, so the start times are based by state. So here in Queensland, for example, they all start at 7. So Saturday morning, 7 a.m., 5 kilometres. That's all non-negotiable. That's what it is. Where events I think have their local flavour is the actual course design. So some courses are running on paths near a beach, others are running around a lake, others are just running around footy fields. So it all depends. So the course itself creates a local flavour. But I think most importantly, and the thing that sets every event apart and makes every event unique is the people. The type of people that go is typically the same. They're people who are wanting to be active, community focused, family focused. But each parkrun is made up of individuals as well. And I think about my local parkrun here in Early Beach, and there's lots of characters, people that I've got to know in my community here that I would have never met if it wasn't for parkrun. So I think it's the people and probably to a lesser extent the courses themselves that create that local flavour. But that's all against a backdrop of things that are non-negotiable. Now, we're also pretty easy to talk to. So if people want to talk to us about why something is what it is, then they can talk to their ambassador, or their ambassador can talk to us, or we can talk directly to an event. So we're pretty approachable to discuss things. But yeah, there are definitely things that are non-negotiable. And it would be it's no different to any type of franchise, if you want to think of it that way. Your franchisee is going to have a rule book of things they can and can't do. We certainly have operating guidelines that we provide to our events, which are the things you can and can't do. But of course, like anything, there's also some areas of grey, and that's where there's certainly discussions that can be had.
Yeah, awesome. Is there a parkrun? We just been through Are You OK Day and Mental Health Awareness Week and stuff like that. And I know personally, and I'll put it out there, that parkrun was part of. I suffered from depression and anxiety. Parkrun and parkrun family. I call it family because as the RD team and the core group there, they were my family, my second family. They helped me through my depression and anxiety and parkrun got me through that. Is there a support bracket there, like other than the family? Your local parkrun, is there a support branch for mental illness and mental awareness and stuff like that as part of the parkrun ethos and global events?
Well, as I mentioned, the mission is health and happiness, and really that underpins everything that we do, all the decisions that we make, be it what sponsors we want to bring on, or partnerships, strategic partnerships, or how we operate. And obviously a huge part of everyone's health and happiness is their mental health. And look, Matt, I'm no different to you. You know, I've had anxiety issues in the past, and I found, exercise more broadly, but also quite specifically, engaging with my local parkrun here in Early Beach as a volunteer and as, running the 5K was huge in helping me through that. And I think when you look at what makes parkrun unique, it's not the running the 5K that makes it unique. It's the support that you get from the people and the community connections that you get there. You know, I could walk out my office now and run 5K if I want to do that, but it's way more fun doing it on a Saturday morning with all these cool people who high five me all the way around the course. So there are immeasurable stories of people whose mental health has benefited at parkrun. It's something that from a research point of view and from a more formalized point of view, we really haven't touched on yet. Like, we certainly have done some research projects in and around parkrun, but I think it's something that in the years ahead, when we do delve deeper into the impacts of parkrun and we start to understand, the true depth of impact that we've had on mental health, I think it's going to be quite staggering. So yeah, look, I think, in terms of your listeners who are out there, don't think about parkrun as a 5K run. Think about it as somewhere where you can go and just feel good and be happy and be, breathing fresh air on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that 100% because that, I actually was in the middle for my first parkrun, I was in the middle of training for a half marathon, and I've never trained anything before. And to be part of that number one at Capella Bar was unreal for me. I loved it. So 5 years, we just celebrated five-year anniversary just recently. So it was, and I'm still there and I still love it. So it's awesome.
Brilliant.
In the sense of, do you ever have too much help, like too much volunteers, too much people wanting to help you? I noticed we're pretty lucky in our event. We have a lot of volunteers and our volunteer roster is pretty full. And I know some events do struggle a little bit, but is from a global point of view or from an Australia point of view and a head office point of view, do you have too many people offering you help, or you have to go looking for it?
Look, our theory on that is we never say no to anyone that wants to volunteer. And like you would know with your course there at Capella Bar, you could always find somewhere else to put a marshal if you wanted to. Even if all that marshal does is stand there encouraging people or having their hand out for a high five. So we encourage anyone who organises any of our events to always say yes when there's someone who wants to volunteer, because you never know what it means to that person on the day as well. If you've got someone who maybe is feeling depressed and that what they're really looking for is just to be out and just to be connected to their community, and you tell them, no, sorry, our roster's full, well, that's pretty heartbreaking, because they're reaching out and they want to be involved, and you're telling them no. So we really encourage everyone to, even if your roster's full, find another spot or double up, have two people in the same space, whatever it could be. There should always be some volunteer role that can be filled by someone at parkrun. So I think it's much more likely the other way. People struggling to get the numbers, and that's something that we proactively work on as well. And the big thing about volunteering, the message that we're trying to get across is that it shouldn't be seen to be a sacrifice. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to sacrifice my Saturday morning and go and volunteer, because you would know, and I know, and anyone who volunteers at parkrun would know that you actually gain so much out of volunteering in your community. You meet great people, you learn skills, you have a laugh, you probably have a coffee afterwards with them. So volunteering in general, but certainly volunteering at parkrun, shouldn't be seen as a sacrifice. It shouldn't be seen as you're giving something. It should be seen as, I'm going to do this because I know I'm going to enjoy it. I know there's a benefit to me.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the truth. I'm almost at my 100 volunteer mark, and I love it. So yeah. Just a couple of quick questions before we finish up. Just in relation to finances, like NFPs and not-for-profit sectors, there's it seems to be a limited amount of resources out there. How do you manage that resource as part of parkrun, and what it goes to, what it doesn't go to, and where you go from there?
Well, look, whether your business is a not-for-profit or a for-profit, I've always felt that you should operate like $1 out is like $1 out of your pocket, and $1 in is $1 in your pocket. So you've got to operate as if it's your business, and you are trying to make a profit. So not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't want to make a profit. It simply means that you're operating for a cause, and that you're not paying your dividends to shareholders. That's really the biggest difference in terms of mindset. So I've always, tried to operate that way myself. And I've, so many times I've had people question me as to how can you even have a salary when your business is a not-for-profit? And I said, well, you clearly don't understand what the not-for-profit means. So I think there's a real misconception out there amongst the wider society as what it means to be a not-for-profit, where the money goes, what it means to have staff and pay staff. And I think all of those things are a bit of a misconception. So I guess, yeah, as I say, I've always tried to run it with an entrepreneurial spirit. Definitely I've always been conscious, you have to make a buck. You have to, generate revenue, and you have to generate as much revenue as you possibly can. So be that through selling a product or having a sponsor or applying for a grant or whatever it might be. You have to really go out there to try and be successful. So trying to generate as much revenue as possible so you can pay your staff and operate your business.
Beautiful. Well, we're just about out of time, mate. I really appreciate your time today, and thanks for coming back onto the second episode. If people want to get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with Parkrun or yourself? Is there there's a website out there, email address?
Yeah, absolutely. So, parkrun.com will send you to any of our Parkrun countries. .com.au is the Australian domain. And look, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. At Tim Oberg 78 is where you'll find me. So love to talk to any of your listeners who might have more questions about Parkrun or more questions about managing a not-for-profit. I'm pretty easily accessible. So, and look, thanks for having me on again, Matt, and congratulations on the ongoing success of the show.
Thanks, mate, and we'll talk soon.